Hey everybody, this is my 125 gallon tank, and today we're going to be doing a simple before and after water change. It's time to get in there and thin out some of the plants, and of course this tank always develops a ton of mulm and crud and detritus. It's got limited water circulation because of all the plants, and as a result I tend to get a lot of buildup. So we're going to see a lot of that come out of there today. I'm probably going to do a pretty substantial water change once we get in there and really start working on it. So the way I've got the tank set up is this end is kind of where all the detritus and everything settles down. The water moves around the tank in a clockwise direction. You can see that big power head I've got in the back there, and that keeps the water sort of swirling around. So as I stir up all the crud and detritus and mulm and everything, it's going to move down towards this end of the tank, and eventually a lot of it will come to rest in these sort of nooks and crannies I've created. You can see there's already a bunch of stuff down in there. Not a lot in that one just yet. If you look kind of behind this rock, you'll see some of that cyanobacteria kind of growing up. It's piling up on some of that crud. This is actually sort of a little pile of stuff in here, so we're going to be starting by getting that out of there. But once we get everything swirling around the tank, you'll see just how much stuff is really in this tank, and how how much detritus and everything is in there. I'll check the nitrate level. It's probably nice and red. It always is in this tank. This one's pretty heavily stocked, and it's been, I don't know, a couple of weeks since I've done a water change on this one, I guess. So we'll see how that goes. We'll take a look while we're in there. I am also going to remove a little bit of the cyanobacteria you can see here and there. Got some green patches of it. Nothing like needing to worry about going in there and doing any kind of a treatment on it just yet. I'm not talking about doing any kind of chemi-clean or anything like that. Simply going to get in there and siphon out anything that I can see. And importantly, we are going to be trimming back my red tiger lotus. You can hardly even see into the tank. All you're really seeing is reflection because it's so dark in the tank that you can't even look into it anymore. Even me standing here, I can barely see into it. And then of course, once we look at the surface, you can see why no light is getting down. I mean, it's like strata at this point. We've got layers of lily pads sitting on top of each other. We've got sheets of green cyanobacteria growing on top of it. You can see that. And I discovered last night, you can probably see them walking around, I've got ants in my aquarium. I'm going to say this is probably the first time I've ever had ants in my aquarium. We do get ants in the basement in the springtime. In fact, I've got my annual migration of flying ants erupting out of my bathroom floor in the other room right now. Usually happens every spring since we've lived here for 20 years. It's weird, but it doesn't really hurt anything. It just kind of creates a bunch of mess. So we've got those ants coming up right now. And then we've got, let's see what this is since we're standing right here, because that's a big, it's just the way the leaf is sitting, but that is a big, again, you can see those sheets of cyanobacteria are sticking to the surface of the leaves, but that's cyanobacteria. Good stuff. So I'll be clearing that out. I'll be clearing the other stuff out. As I was saying about the ants, I've definitely got some ants crawling around on the floor. These are not the flying ants I was just talking about, but it is springtime, and like I said, I got a few ants crawling around. How they got up here into the aquarium, I don't know, and how there's so many, because I saw several of them crawling around in here. I'm not sure about that either. If we get them knocked loose into the water column, then I would imagine the rainbow fish will probably make short work of the ants. And I also noticed some sort of scummy, uneaten fish food that's getting collected up here in the corner. So another reason to get this off the surface and to get this trimmed back is to increase water flow again. A lot of the reason the water doesn't swirl around at this end of the tank is it can't. It's just stagnant right there. And you can see the results of all that. So anyway, that was more of a opening intro than I was anticipating. But again, we're going to do a nice big water change. I'll let the camera roll while we're doing it so you can see what's actually happening in there. And then we'll come back and we'll do a quick before and after. There's your before. And there's your after. So if you skipped ahead, then what you missed was probably a 50 to 60% water change. I removed a bunch of mulm out of there. I moved it all towards the end of the tank as I was describing. I vacked it out several times, redid that process a few times. I wiped the glass down, both inside and out. I did not do anything with the filter other than clean out the intake, which had a bunch of roots and crud and stuff stuck to it, and that was severely limiting the water flow that was coming through the filter. So I took care of all that. I removed a bunch of the red tiger lotus at the far end of the tank, as you can see, but I also wound up removing a big chunk of the Java fern that's right there in the center, that piece in the middle that's tucked underneath that rock. And it just kind of came loose as I was knocking a bunch of the mulm and stuff out of it. And since it came loose, I split it in half, tucked half back in, and we now have a big chunk that is for sale if anybody wants it. Check my email down below. I've always got something for sale if you're looking for aquatic plants. And that's really about it. I did check the nitrate before and after. We'll have a look at that in a moment. But I also want to point out that this is not in any way to indicate this is how you should do a water change. It's not even how I always do a water change. I just like getting stuff like this on video for the sake of showing you how I do it and showing you what my tanks look like and how dirty they get and how much mulm there is. And you can even see how, despite all the mulm that you saw in that tank and as filthy as it may have appeared, the water itself is fine and clean. And this may help to sort of address some people's idea of what consists or what constitutes a dirty tank. I hear the word dirty a lot in regards to my tank, and it's usually in regards to algae, which really surprises me because that's just way off the mark. At least with the mulm, I can see that being considered a dirty tank, and indeed it is. That's why I got in there and I gravel vacked and got all that stuff out of there and cleaned it up. But the idea that that is in there and it's some terrible pollutant and so on and so forth really is not the case. It does need to be addressed, but not as urgently as some people might think. So the nitrate test came out. The one on the right is the before and the one on the left is after, and I know this again is a terrible way of looking at this test, but we started with it nice and red. I couldn't tell you exactly what it was because the way these tests work, once it gets red, you know, it's just kind of red from there on. Wasn't really dark red or anything, you can see it yourself. And after the test, I know this looks a little bit red, but that is still in the very upper end of orange category. I'm saying we're just on the south side of 40 parts per million as the after. That's what we ended up with in this tank. So not surprising, that's about what I expected. This tank is very heavily stocked. I've got some big fish in it. I've got plenty of fish in it. I've even got fish in there that you can't even see for the most part. I've got 3 small plecos on the bottom. And I say small only by pleco standards. There's still a substantial amount of bioload in the tank. Can't really think a whole lot else to think about or talk about. Again, didn't do anything with the filter other than clean out the filter intake. And that had a whole bunch of crud, and the roots from the Java had grown over there and was clogging that up. I do have a rainbow fish here that's exhibiting some really unusual behavior. I shot an entire 5-minute video discussing this behavior by itself, so I will attach a card if you're more curious than just a little bit of a look you're getting at it now. Then you can check out that video. But it is not ill or sick or anything. It's acting territorial. And it comes out, it swims around, it acts normal, it interacts with the other fish, and then it comes right back to this spot and starts swimming around like it's protecting eggs or it's a nesting site or something. And I've never seen that behavior in a rainbow fish before. It's kind of weird. So again, I already shot a whole video about that. I'll attach a card if you want to see what's going on with that in more detail, or if you've got any idea what that is, by all means, let me know in a comment down below. And lastly, I will say you can see the difference I made on my tiger lotus there. I really chopped that way back, but I've still got 2 shoots that are still in the process of coming up. Those are probably going to stretch all the way up to the surface by the time they fully unfurl, and those almost immediately are going to be floating pads again that I'll have to get off of the surface. Otherwise, we're pretty much good for a little while. We got a nice trim, and we can kind of let that ride and start growing back. And then this here is the Java that came unrooted. So whenever you're placing Java between 2 hard things, a piece of wood and a rock or something like that, in this case it's 2 rocks, don't pinch the rhizome itself, or what you would maybe think of as the main root. That will actually damage or even kill the fern itself. You've got to allow the rhizome to breathe a little bit. You got to keep it above the soil. Don't plant it down in the soil. Leave that rhizome exposed. And what you do when you're tucking it between 2 rocks like this is you tuck these roots down in between the rock, and you let the rock sit on them, and that will anchor it and secure it in place while the rhizome is free to, you know, breathe and let the juices flow through it and all that kind of stuff. So you won't pinch it by, you know, squeezing it between 2 rocks like that. And slowly over time, this rhizome will put out roots that attach to these rocks and grow to it. And at some point I'll have to get in there and sort of tear it off like I did during this water change. Again, I did all that in the intermittent part where you saw me actually doing the water change, if you're interested in watching any of that. So there you go. That is all I can think of, at least for now. Make sure you're subscribed so you won't miss anything I got coming up. You never know what it's going to be with me. So thanks again for watching this one. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget, this is my 125. And I'll see you real soon in the next one.